Hello, in Efir, the news from Channel 1 with an overview of the events in the world and the country as of 2100 hours Moscow time. 2 rounds of voting to elect the chairman of the Soviet Federation did not bring victory today to any one of the candidates. Economic cooperation, integration and foreign policy of Russia and Belarus were the main themes of discussion between Boris Yeltsin and Stanislav Shishkevich. In Prague, the president of the USA, Boris Clinton, acquainted the leaders of the Visegrad Group with the NATO plan, Partnership for Peace. The leaders of Georgia announced their readiness to enter the rebel zone in order to overcome their crisis. The main object of attention of Russian information agencies today were the turbulent debates in the Soviet Federation on the election of the chairman of the House and in the State Duma around the ambitious statements of the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party. The first 2 days of the work of the parliamentarians confirm for now the forecast of many political activists that the complex structure of the Deputy Corps make its work less predictable than the submissive Hezbollahtian Supreme Soviet or the eternally contentious Congresses of National Deputies. The greater part of the second workday, the deputies of the Soviet Federation spent in expectation. Twice they attended the cabins for secret balloting, but the answer to the question who will be the chairman of the higher chamber of the Parliament of Russia, they did not find. And now the details. As was decided yesterday, the lists for secret balloting included the deputies Peter Romanov, Edward Rossel, Alexander Titkin, and Vladimir Shumeyka. The candidates for the higher government post in detail expounded on their view of the role of Speaker and spoke about themselves. Among the reasons which inspired them to take upon themselves the reins of control of chamber were such. Peter Romanov. For me, my name and surname don't permit me to think otherwise or be concerned for Russia in any other way. And to speak of Great Russia in any other way than how I speak of it now. Edward Rossel. I feel that it is time for all of us to not only be, but be called Russians. In my view, this would firmly unite all of us. Alexander Titkin. Our goal will be not to destroy this policy, and in general to destroy less, but with greater meaning, for the greater benefit of the country and the people, to emerge from this silly situation. Vladimir Shumeyka. For me, the main thing is, as the Lord said, there's a time to disperse rocks and a time to collect them. The time has come to gather Russia and collect our economy. The deputies who made statements that every one of the contenders is worthy to be a speaker. The issue is that the chamber is functioning not on a permanent basis, but we are in a position only to delegate for 2 years. And if the situation develops so that Shumeyka will be chosen, will you be able to be his deputy? Never. The results of the voting showed that Vladimir Shumeyka emerged as a leader with 85 votes and Peter Romanov 56 votes. Shumeyka lacked 1 vote for the victory. A series of deputies introduced a proposal to count the vote of the deputy Galazov for the benefit of Shumeyka, which was sent by telegram. But the regulations of the order of secret balloting don't provide for such a form in the participation of voting. And perhaps corporativeness played a role. The telegram by Galazov was not sent to the chamber, but to the President Boris Yeltsin and Vladimir Shumeyka. The second attempt also didn't yield the desired results. Vladimir Shumeyka lost 4 votes, and Peter Romanov, although he had gained 25 more supporters, did not accumulate the needed number of votes. Observers feel that the attempts to resort to extreme give extreme results. The pressure on Shumeyka led to the fact that Romanov received such a result. And it's not by accident in the corridors of the Soviet Federation they are speaking about new names. For example, the former chairman of the Moscow Council, Nikolai Gonchar. We will see tomorrow what happens. Tomorrow there will be a new bout of voting. Today in the work of the State Duma there was a recess. Among the journalists and deputies there was the same heated battles as yesterday. It is evident that a deputy from the LDP, George Lukava, will remember it like a nightmare. It was just a usual day in my life. In essence, there was no turbulence or excitement. Perhaps there was something latent. At the same time, the deputies don't dramatize the situation, although separate opinions were voiced that in the current State Duma, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to achieve agreement and simply cooperate. In this connection, the opinion of Anatoly Lukyanov. This parliament is not a pocket parliament for the authorities, but I am absolutely convinced that in it there is a potential to understand the situation and I think also to be in accord. Today factions met. Discussions were held on forming deputy groups. It is noteworthy that everyone converges in their opinion. The key question is the organization of the work of the Duma. And here the leaders of the factions are intending to take control in their own hands. The leader of DPR, Nikolai Travkin, emphasized that the leaders and the representatives of factions, they are the ones that make the principal political decisions, including conducting the preparatory work and the agenda and questions for discussion. Only this will permit the work of the parliament to be in any way predictable. This evening, the first meeting was held of the leaders of the factions of deputy groups. They had to define the agenda for tomorrow and discuss the candidacies for the post of chairman, the deputy, and others. Again, the initiator of the conflict was Vladimir Zhirinovsky, who demanded the right to chair the meeting as the leader of the largest parliamentary faction. I say to the parliament that the people elected the LDPR, and you're planning to close our mouths. Stop, 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 be quiet. Get up and get out. Nikolai Travkin submitted an ultimatum. If Zhirinovsky doesn't change his behavior, the factions will resort to the tactic of full blockade of the Liberal Democratic Party. The meeting continued. The leader of the Communist Party, Gennady Zyuganov, noted, I'm convinced parties will be formed of a so-called common sense, which will vote for professionalism and listen to the opinion of authoritative people in the auditorium. There are many authoritative professional deputies in the auditorium whose words will absolutely be heard. After today's scandal in the quarters of the State Duma, the journalists called Vladimir Zhirinovsky the incident person who can't take 20 steps without declaring war on someone. Analyzing the structure of Parliament in the first session, observers feel it is very likely that the opposition will use the parliamentary tribunal to express contradictory atmospheres between the White House and the Kremlin, and at the talks which will begin tomorrow in Moscow. This Russian-American summit is assessed by official sides as a major step of the drawing closer of the two sides. The analogous mood was in Prague today as well, where the president of the USA acquainted the leaders of the Visegrad Group with the plan of the North Atlantic Bloc Partnership for Peace. Today, the Prague summit ended. In the meeting of Bill Clinton with the leaders of the 4 countries in Eastern Europe, the result is already known. Prague and Bratislava, Warsaw and Budapest have accepted the American NATO plan of partnership for peace. During the separate talks with the leaders of the post-communist states, who are striving, as is known, to membership in NATO, Clinton was able to convince them that only this plan was a realistic path to obtain in perspective their desired objectives. Security of Eastern Europe, noted the American president, is extremely important for the security of the United States and all of the North Atlantic Alliance. In accordance with the program of partnership, in the current year in NATO military academies, officers and units of Eastern European armies will be able to participate. The Czech Republic, unlike the initial excuses of Poland, immediately agreed with the proposed plan, considering it to be a step in the right direction, and itself remains unchanged both for Prague and for its neighbors. In perspective, as Clinton said, the doors of the Western Alliance will open for all democratic countries. But on them and on each individually, said President Havel, will depend when and how soon they will be able to enter these doors. Literally, a few moments ago, we received news that the American president, en route to Moscow, made a short stop in the airport Borispol, where he is supposed to speak with the president, Leonid Kravchuk, on the nuclear armaments on Ukrainian territory. These problems and the prospects of trade and economic cooperation of the USA, Russia and Ukraine will be discussed with the President Bill Clinton tomorrow and the day after tomorrow in Moscow. The planned arrival of Clinton in the capital of Russia is today at approximately 0000 hours. When 1 year ago the 46th president of the USA took office, he stated that his view of the world is an economic one, not a military competition. The first president in 12 years is a Democrat. He was born after the Second World War. Clinton is a new generation of politicians in the USA. The former government of the state Arkansas, he brought into the official Washington the feeling of some closeness to the earth and a feeling of roots. Clinton had a difficult childhood. His father died in an automobile accident when he was 3 months old. His stepfather was not impartial to alcohol, and Clinton often defended his mother. He wanted to become a doctor, journalist, or a musician, but became a president who intends to change much in his own country. Some of his steps are called revolutionary. The unprecedented in America's history is the increase in taxes, and this year the plan of cardinal reform of the healthcare system. Priority of foreign and domestic policy of Clinton is 1, the economy. The strength of America and its world influence, he says, begins at home. When tomorrow Clinton will meet with the president of Russia, they will likely find common ground. From information from the main control of security of Russia to provide security for the high-level Moscow meeting, there are no plans to conduct special-scale operations of any kind, as it was done in Prague, whose downtown residents were frightened by snipers on roofs of buildings and divers in Czech waterways. In the Czech capital, Clinton will stay in the 3-room suite in the Slavyanska Hotel for one reason, because in this hotel, with the presidential suite, all affairs will be handled by Americans on a purely American level. In the prelude to the American-Russian summit for talks with Boris Yeltsin to Moscow, the leader of Belarus, Shushkevich, arrived today, who, according to him, brought an entire package of economic proposals, the objective of which is the integration of the markets of both republics. Serious issues of economy were discussed today. The situation in the market of our closest neighbor can be assessed as one of the most woeful, and compared to Russia. The tempos of inflation have exceeded 25% per month. For 1 ruble, according to the official rate, they give 4.5 coupons. The difference in imports and exports with Russia comprises from $36 to $100 million. Enormous funds are being spent to liquidate the after effects of Chernobyl. And today, as our correspondent reports, in the Republic there is a wave of meetings and protests incited by professional unions of industry. Their basic slogan is "Stop the collapse of productivity." Lately, in political circles and in media, there is discussion of the desire of the two countries to sign an agreement to create an economic union and the ruble zone of a new type. These agreements will remove technical barriers which restricted cooperation of an essentially mellifluous people. And also the oppositional press of Belarus and some Russian observers consider that such a decision will lead to damage to our countries. Belarus will again be under Russia and compromise its sovereignty, and Russia will have to freely feed and support its closest poor relative. Similar suppositions were deflected by Stanislav Shushkevich, who consented to give us an interview after his meeting with Boris Yeltsin. From whence is there so much talk about resistance to the understanding of the interests of Belarus? Please read our today's communiques. We attempted in the most concise forms to state that the Republic of Belarus and the Russian Federation are seeking paths and of broad and true means to draw closer, and are seeking a forum to express this drawing closer in a legal document so that people wouldn't experience difficulties. We must conclude a broad-scale agreement on cooperation, which takes into account the realities of today. For us, the main issue in creating a ruble zone is so that the Russian ruble, if that will be our basis, in Belarus as well as in Russia, would have the same value. If we can find such an alternative, it must be accomplished as quickly as possible. If such an agreement is signed, then it will be a new basis will be opened to draw our people together. Economic pluses and political minuses. This is the assessment by Belarusian political scientists of the imminent unifying of the financial systems of Russia and Belarus. The positives are obvious. Regarding the minuses, they are harshly defined by the leader of parliamentary opposition, the leader of the National Front of the Republic, Pozniak, who stated today that the monetary union with Moscow is an obvious stage in the recreating of the Russian Empire. On the other hand, the introduction of the national currency was not a panacea for the crisis in any of the republics of the Commonwealth. In Uzbekistan, for example, prices on food rose by 2.5 times, and the inflation at year-end was 1,000%. Armenia and Tajikistan were first among the list of 20 countries who realistically face the threat of severe food shortages because of interior wars and the critical situation of the environment. As Interfax informs, the unions of Ukraine discussed today in Kiev the possibility of holding a general strike on the 18th of January, which will begin in the event that the government does not pay all the debts for salaries to coal miners in the Republic. In the former Soviet Union, the Black Sea Marine was the leading marine company. In independent Ukraine, it became one of the main sources of currency flow into the government treasury. The significance of the Black Sea Merchant Marine is being preserved as a major transportation mechanism, which works in the interests of Ukraine, Russia, and other CIS countries. Therefore, around the process of the degovernmentalization of companies, serious debates have developed. The December parliamentary meetings on this question ended with a veto being imposed on the decree of the President of Ukraine on auctioning the Black Sea Merchant Marine. Several national deputies accused the directors of the company and certain Kiev officials of major financial violations, bordering on attempts to cheaply sell off the Ukrainian trade fleet. The President of Ukraine, Leonid Kravchuk, in response to the decision of the Supreme Soviet, issued a new decree substantially restricting the sphere of latitude of the parliamentary veto, which permitted the collective of the Marine to conduct its activity. Excessively prolonged discussions deal blows, first of all, to the interests of Ukraine itself, the authority of whose merchant marine on the world level was subjected to serious tests. The Ministry of Internal Affairs of Georgia continue to examine the circumstances of the end of Zviad-Gunsakhurdia, and according to the information received today from Tbilisi, is developing three possible versions. First of all, the reason for the suicide could be progressive cancer. Secondly, the realization of the impossibility of returning to the capital by the president. And thirdly, the possible dramatization of the suicide with the goal of leaving the country to smuggle out large volumes of precious items and money. Today, the family of the ex-president gave its consent to open the grave in the presence of international experts whose arrival is expected in Georgia shortly. A few days ago, the Speaker of the Parliament of Georgia, Vakhtang Gugnaze, appeared on national television with an appeal to the deputies of Parliament, to whom he proposed to immediately pose the question of Georgia entering the ruble zone. In the opinion of the Speaker, this was the only way that the Republic could emerge from that catastrophic situation which it finds itself in today. The rate of the national coupon continues to decisively plummet. Despite an overall ban, the trade of Russian rubles is rampant, which the majority of the population does not have. As a result, people have become impoverished. Dying from starvation are the aged and the children. The proposal of the Speaker caused harsh criticism from many deputies. At the meeting of Vakhtang Gugnaze with the opposition parliamentarianism, by the majority of those who spoke, opposition was expressed that having entered the ruble zone, Georgia will lose not only financial but political independence. Discussion on this topic continue. Today, together with the re-established, destroyed military economy, the most complex problem of Abkhazia is the issue of the return of refugees. Therefore, the government commission was formed in this regard, and a Republican program was developed on the gradual return of refugees. During the 3 months after the end of the war, from Russia to Abkhazia, 20,000 refugees have returned, Russians, Armenians, and Jews. Almost resolved is the issue of the return of Greeks to Abkhazia, taken to Greece during the war, for which, during the next while, the Greek firm Anitan Turn is organizing regular voyages from Athens to Sukhum. The Government Commission on the Refugee Affairs has begun preparations for the return of refugees of Georgians to the Gali region of Abkhazia. Yesterday, in the city of Gali, the Commission held a council meeting and met with the residents of the region. It was noted that for the return of the residents of Gali to their homes, the first necessary condition is the normalization of the situation in the region, whereas previously the criminal situation remains quite complex. A decision was adopted to enforce the martial law, and meanwhile the refugees themselves, not having received an official decision, are returning, and to date more than 500 people have returned. But they're not coming over the bridge of the river Ingur, but over land, which is quite dangerous, and this is because at control points at the border from the Georgian side, which is quite strange, they are not being permitted to pass. As we were explained by the refugees themselves, they're being hindered to the return of their homes by the residents of the Gal region. As a result of the trading today, the Moscow currency exchange, the rate of the American dollar rose today by 42 points and comprised 1,335 rubles. 74 banks reported the realization of $148 million. Experts of the exchange connect the plummet of the Russian ruble with the indefinite structure of the cabinet of ministers and the fears that the reformers could lose their key posts in the government. Another reason is the restriction on the circulation of cash of foreign currency and the raise in prices of fuel and transportation services and the increase in salaries in the budget sphere. For decades, the Leningrad Optic Mechanical Association, abbreviated LOMO, was broadly known in the Soviet Union and abroad as a major producer of astronomical equipment, medical apparatus, and photographic equipment. But an only narrow circle of enlightened people knew of the unique systems which were supplied to and are being supplied to the current military forces by LOMO on land, sea, and air. Of course, the events of the last years did not reflect quite positively on the productivity here. But Le Mans learned not only to quickly react to indicators of financial and economic barometers, but precisely predict the future changes. And therefore, it was that the firm this year entered in the capacity of an auctioneer society of an open type, and today is offering its shares at the all-Russian Czech auction. The participation in the auctioning of the shares of Le Mans has been confirmed by 40 republics and districts and areas of Russia, and this means that soon co-owners of the firms will be hundreds of thousands of citizens of our country. One of the phantoms of our days is our epidemics and infectious diseases. The reasons I think no one needs to explain, but the Government Committee of Health and Sanitary Control, we were told that as of today the situation is under control, and there are even some positive trends. If in 1991 in Russia there were 150 severe epidemic diseases registered, then in 1993 there were 89, that is 60 less. And if it was possible for us to avoid mass onslaughts of epidemics, which were foretold both by foreign and some of our scientists. We have clearly defined our priorities. We know what to work on and in which direction to go. And I think that the previous infectious diseases in 1994, we will not permit. The greatest danger, according to specialists today, is diphtheria. It can be stopped only this year if we have a vaccination of 80% of the population. The vaccination serum is needed, and we need our readiness to be vaccinated. That is our understanding of the situation. According to facts from experts at the Ministry of Labor, currently in Russia, there are 1 million officially unemployed people. Realistically, without work are 5 million people. This number may increase by the year end to 79 million because of the closure of bankrupt companies. According to calculation of experts of government, the nominal salary in 1994 will be at an average of 240,000 rubles, after an increase of the minimum salary to 50,000 rubles per month. Therefore, the projected tempos of inflation by year-end should not exceed 5 to 7%. In April, there were marshes here, but now an entire town is near the end of construction for one of the Russian military units withdrawn from Germany. According to an intergovernmental agreement, the Russian side is issuing tenders for construction, German banks are financing, and the work is being done by firms who won the contracts. This town is being built by Bulgarian firm Volgograd-Stroy, and the first homes have been completed. Some new tenants are receiving keys, but some are already living in their new apartments. As the military themselves say, of all those being withdrawn from the territory of the Privolzhsk military district, this is the only town, Kamenka, which by construction beats the scheduled time limits. As of today, for us it is a double holiday, a holiday of our firm, Volgograd-Stroy, because it fulfilled its contract as necessary, and it is also a holiday for Russian officers' families who today received their keys and entered their beautiful apartments. This complex, apart from apartments, has a school, a kindergarten, a center of trade and housing services. The town is expected to expand. Bulgarian specialists have received another contract for construction of 4 more apartment buildings. According to information from the German magazine Stern, lists of construction workers on contracts from abroad, the Yugoslavian workers are in the lead. In Germany alone, there are 60,000. Following them are Bulgarians and Turks, and the list of foreign masters is concluded by Japanese and Chinese workers. With a special visit to Ankara, today the head of Georgia, Eduard Shevardnadze, arrived. They're expecting to sign the Georgian-Turkish Declaration on Cooperation for Independence, Peace, Stability and Democracy. The Secretary General of the UN, Boutros Ghali, welcomed the decision of the Brussels meeting of NATO and announced his readiness to sanction the use of NATO aviation force in Bosnia to facilitate the establishment of peace in this former Yugoslavian republic. In Mexico, for the first time since January the 1st, the beginning of the armed uprising in the state Chiapas, during the last 24 hours, there was not one clash registered between the army and the uprisers. The military announced the implementation of intelligence operations with the goal of uncovering units of the Zapatistas Army of National Liberation. 3 North Irish policemen were injured, 2 of them injured seriously, as a result of the explosion of a bomb which was thrown into a patrol car in one of the areas of Belfast. Responsibility for the terrorist act was claimed by the Irish Republican Army. which is attempting through violence to achieve the removal of British troops from Ulster and its joining to Ireland. The names and photographs of the former King Mihai and Marshal Antonescu again were circulating all Romanian newspapers. The reason for these publications was a 3-minute broadcast over national television. The authors accused the ex-monarch for the arrest and annihilation of the Marshal Antonescu, and that the king opened the gates for the Romanian and Russian communists, for which he was ordained with the highest Soviet order of victory. Line by line, it informed and asked, the king wishes to return to the throne. Who will be next after Marshal Antonescu? The small broadcast caused a grandiose scandal. To the defense of the king, with friendly columns, the opposition arose, which has lately spent much energy proving that monarchy is the most suitable form of government for Romania, and only the king, returning to the throne, is capable of returning peace to the country. Defending the king, the opposition doesn't even mention the crimes of Antonescu. He, for them, is a victim of the communist regime. Here they're attempting to forget his dictatorial, legendary regime. From these books praising the Marshal, which were lately published, you will find out nothing about raids on Jews, nor concentration camps in Romania. And this service is devoted to Antonescu as to a national hero who wanted to return to Romania its historical lands, Bessarabia, Bucharima, Dobruja, and northern Transylvania. And here they are, her veterans. Today they don't even remember the punishments of Odessa and the repressions and joint Hitler military aggressions in Kharkiv, northern Caucasus, and Volga. And today no one remembers the giant human and material losses which the union of Antonescu and Hitler brought to Romania. The Marshal had no crimes, but only mistakes, which are minuscule compared to his accomplishments. This is an attempt to convince the population of Romania today. Today in Seoul, meetings of demonstration of students took place with demonstrations to prevent the libertization of imports. Mostly, demonstrations were against the opening of the inner market on food and against inviting foreign teachers to university and colleges in South Korea. George Bush intends this week to visit China, states the Associated Press agency, emphasizing that in old Chinese diplomatic circles, the former president of the USA is respectfully called an old great friend, and liked to remember how during the Bush administration with the U.S. mission to China, Bush liked to ride around Peking on a bicycle and appear at dignified luncheons in bamboo helmets and shorts, shocking the ceremonious Chinese with Western manners and an intense desire to study the ancient culture of this country. What joy would it be if the manuscripts really did not deteriorate, and if paint did not flake away from old canvases, and if time did not destroy beauty created by the human soul? Acknowledged as a major force, it is beauty that is the most fragile and defenseless, especially when it meets its most dangerous enemy, time, and the human destroyer. Recently, from the exhibit of Russian art in Italy, 18 works were stolen. Paintings were damaged by inappropriate storage, and so they returned to the Tretyakov Gallery, as did the rest of Trepin. For 2 years, forcing the Moscow restorationists to forget their own rest. Using the latest discoveries of chemistry, biology, and physics, the restorationists have become a science unto themselves. And it seems only by the magic of Acropolis one could return these masterpieces the eternal attractiveness. But science is not always lucky. The organizers of the exhibit found the courage to demonstrate this icon, irreparably damaged without the aid of restorationists. The exhibition was organized by the Center Karvayavets and individual artists of Moscow, who combined leading restorational workshops of the country, from the Tretyakov Gallery to the Hermitage. The viewer has the opportunity to follow the fate of each masterpiece, comparing the exhibit with their photographs. One understands how much creative time was needed by humans to return beauty, measured at times in only a few centimeters. In the capital of Russia, on the place of the swimming pool in Moscow, the Church of Christ the Savior, blown up by Bolsheviks, will be restored. This was a decision made today by the Moscow government. First to be restored will be the chapel of the majestic icon of the Mother of God. With this news, I end my broadcast of the major events of the day. And after the advertisement, you will see the pre-Olympic scandals in Norway and the news of the sports. All the best.
Осуществляем инвестиции в наиболее стабильную отрасль экономики. Аналитический центр проводит маркетинг и экономический анализ финансирования предприятий, что повлекло за собой поднятие рыночной стоимости акций на 300%. Удачные инвестиции, осуществленные фондом, принесли вкладчикам доход до 750% годовых за первое полугодие. Акции фонда можно приобрести по адресу Москва, Сретенский бульвар, дом 1. Или в любом почтовом отделении.
МКЛ приглашает вас со всей семьей отдыхать в 5-звездочном коттедже в любое время года, в любом месте земного шара. Фирма МКЛ не знает границ.
Вниманию держателей акций акционерного общества открытого типа МММ. Собрание акционеров АО МММ решило выплатить дивиденд за четвертый квартал 1993 года из расчета 1000% годовых. Дивиденд по акциям АО МММ можно получить, начиная с 1 февраля 1994 года по адресу город Москва, Варшавское шоссе, дом 26, торговый зал объединения МММ. Время выдачи дивиденда ежедневно, кроме субботы и воскресенья, с 9 до 19 часов.
Но сколько же можно размышлять, лучше симот и пройтись? Даже свобода выбирает симот.
Первый ваучерный всегда первый.
Lillehammer, a small Norwegian town 150 kilometers north of Oslo, is preparing for the Winter Olympic Games. In the streets, there are many tourists who walk from one Olympic object to the other. One of the architectural innovations is are the coniferous kiosks for the sale of newspapers, souvenirs, and sweets. These are also Olympic objects. Much for the Olympic Games in Lillehammer will be prepared from, as they say, environmentally friendly materials in order to preserve the environment. If previously the Olympic movement propagated two values, sports and culture, Norwegians wish to add a third, that is closeness to nature. Therefore, the Olympic fire was obtained by the most natural method, through friction. Therefore, the Olympic style of this year is formed on the basis of the Norwegian national dress from wool, sweaters, suspenders, and knickers. Advertising harmony with nature, Norwegians desire also to, as if, change the genetic code of the Olympic Games instilled by Coubertin, and from now on not only sports and culture, but sports, culture, and the ecology. For now, the Olympic fire, obtained by the Norwegian old man Ulbakke, is traveling throughout Norway, throughout the islands, fjords, the oil platforms in the Northern Sea, to Oslo. On the 12th of February, it will burn in Lillehammer, and as Norwegians hope, it will announce the beginning of the new Olympic era, the demise of which will be sports, culture, and ecology. Good evening. And so before the Winter Olympics, we have little time left. And some of us will be television viewers, but many even fans in the audience. But now, about the events in our country. In the championships of the International Hockey League, there are 4 matches. That is, 1 has already been completed. The Dynamos of Moscow won against the Perm Molot with a score of 4-1. In the regular National Hockey League matches, there were two teams which gained 57 points simultaneously, Toronto and the New York Rangers. Toronto won against Washington 2-1, and in the last minute of regulation play, the last goal was scored by Duke Gilbert. The Los Angeles and San Jose team was tied 2-2, and the Moscow Dynamo Viktor Kozlov will be soon playing in those games. The League of our class hockey players beyond the ocean continues. The tennis championships in the state of New South Wales is having its first tournament of the big cup, the Australian Open. Pete Sampras met with the Swede Johan Svensson. After his defeat in Qatar from the little-known Moroccan Karim Alami, the American looked collected and beat his contender in only 68 minutes. Yevgeny Kafelnikov lost to Todd Martin from the USA. This is an American, Summer Sanders, who in Barcelona, a swimmer, won 4 medals, among them 2 gold ones. However, every brilliant career comes to an end, and it is best to part in a dignified way. Sanders left big sport explaining her step simply. "I don't like it anymore," said the Olympic champion. From Mias, the grandiose auto race, London, New York, continues on Kazakhstani territory. Furthermore, it will go along the east of our country and along the distant north. The 17th stage in the rally Paris-Dakar-Paris was along the territory of Morocco. Its winner is Hubert Auriol on the Citroën. And in second place is another Frenchman, Pierre Lartigue, and also on the Citroën. He is leading in the overall count. And the third place was taken by Nikolai Yelizarov on the Lada. Among the motorcyclists, the leader in the overall count is the Italian Hubert Aurioli. Details, as usual, on our evening report. Good evening. The residents of Eastern Europe didn't have enough time to enjoy the frost for very long, when during the next few days, warm, humid air from the Atlantic will be entering here. Gradually, there will be a weakening of frost in the northwestern region, on the Kolsk Peninsula, in Arkhangelsk, Vologda, and in the west of Koma. Here they're expecting cloudy weather. In some places there will be snow. At night it will be -10, -15, and even -25. In the Leningrad district and in the south of Karelia, the south wind will grow stronger, up to 15 meters per second. There will be some snow. The temperature at night will be -3.8, during the day -5. In the Baltic countries and in the Kaliningrad district, the zone of frontal collision of air masses will be taking place. Here they're expecting cloud with precipitation, and winds will increase to 15 meters per second. The temperature will be -2 +3 degrees. On the Baltic shores, the temperature will be 1 +4. The majority of central Russia will be under the influence of a cold anticyclone air. It will be moving toward the mid-Volga and South Ural regions. Therefore, in the central areas, there will be intermittent clouds with some clear skies and snow. At night, it will be -12, -17, and in the daytime, 3 to 6 degrees warmer. The frontal division of air masses will pass over the west and central Chernozem regions. They're expecting cloudiness, precipitation, and fogs in some places with icy roads. At night, the temperatures will be -5, -10, during the day -1, -6. In the central Don and central Volga regions, the temperature at night will be -5. During the day, up to +5. At night and morning hours, fog and sleet, icy roads. In Belarus and Ukraine, it will be cloudy. There will be some precipitation. The southwest wind will strengthen. The temperature at night will be around 0. During the day, up to +5. In Moldova, it will be warm, up to +6. Low cloud cover, wet fog will remain here. In the Rostov district, there will also be fog. The temperature at night, 0, -5. During the day, 0, +5. At the Black Sea coast in the Krasnodarsk area, there will be 7, +12 degrees. A high pressure area will influence the weather in Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. There will be intermittent cloudiness without much precipitation. During the night, weak frost. During the day, 5, +10 degrees. In the west of Georgia, 12 and +15 degrees. In Petersburg tomorrow, they're expecting cloudy weather, at times snow, gusts of wind from the south 7 to 12 meters per second. The temperature at night will be -1, during the day around 0. In Moscow, it will be cloudy, some weak precipitation, in some areas fog. Winds from the south 5 to 8 meters per second. At night, the temperature will be -7, 9. During the day, 1, -3. The roads are icy. All the best.